I guess when Mark and the team wrote the first line of code on Thrive all those years ago, it was all about how do we help the front end of Thrive be a really intelligent discovery engine so that people can find great content based on their behavior. So it was all about really surfacing up relevant content, leveraging our recommendation engine, but having the platform really tailored to someone's skills, interests, and their audience in terms of what they do across the organization. So every kind of homepage that we design and work with customers on is very much tailored to the individual. And a lot of the times that's done through integrations. We have great integrations into platforms like Workday, where we can pull in skills data, department, region, language, location data, and much more to really personalize that experience. So what you see from all of these sites here is that everything's very different. It's all very tailored based on the use case and the problems that people are looking to solve. Now, there's lots of content on this front page here. So from a training perspective, I'm just going to address how that works. Firstly, content can be very easily shared within the platform. We support all the styles that you'd expect, from links, external content, files, traditional e-learning like SCORM packages, quizzes, broadcasts, and much more. As a standard, and our most successful customers allow their end users to share knowledge. So they will allow people to post actively into the platform. Then they have new skill sets which are emerging from an L&D perspective to manage the content which is coming into the platform. So for example, if I want to share, let's say, a link, copy and paste that in, and that will bring in thumbnails, allow me to tag it with a topic, a skill, and then share it with a certain audience. So here the challenge that we're looking to solve is how do I quickly share a piece of knowledge with a group of people? Give that a skill, share it with an audience. So in this case here, click post, and now that's shared that piece of content. It will embed into the platform, it would stream and easily be accessible on any device. So I am showing you the web version here, but there is an iOS and Android application as well. And then once that content has been shared, we really allow comments, likes, shares, pins, and all those things to take place around the content. That piece of content now could sit as an individual piece of content, or it could be added to a pathway. So with pathways, it gives you the opportunity to create programs, which could be used for compliance and mandatory training, or it could be used for a more informal program or some self-directed learning that you want to give the people the opportunity to connect with. So for example, if I go into DECIEM here, just to cover that training section, here's how they manage onboarding. They've created a structure down the left where people can work through in a sequence. This can be locked down if you want, so you can create a very sequential path or keep it open. Our visions and values around learning at Thrive is definitely kind of keep it open so people can discover great content at the moment of need. But some customers, especially in insurance, financial services, they need to lock things down and keep it much more sequential. But what you can see within this pathway is the variety of styles of content. Yes, there are videos, there's checklists for day one, there's score modules, but there's also events by which people can connect with them, sign up to it. It integrates with calendars. You can pop in a Microsoft Teams, Zoom link into there as well, and really kind of manage events just as you would in a more traditional learning management system. So those kind of two parts of the pathways and then the events really help people manage the more compliance, mandatory training elements of learning, if you like. Now with pathways as well, you can add levels of assessments into here to test knowledge and competency. And a little bit later on, we'll get into skills to show how we can really help level that up as well. The best thing about pathways though, is that you can add experts to the pathways. So you can actually choose to add experts to certain sections, search for that expert. So I can add an individual here, and then she could become the expert of that pathway. So then I can start to develop much more coaching and mentoring relationships by asking experts questions directly within Thrive. So it's all about connecting people to great content, yes, but connecting people to experts is definitely where Thrive comes into its own. So they're kind of two core parts of the pathways and then the events, which really is the kind of LMS capability that a lot of customers still require. Mark, any questions there about when you were designing pathways in terms of what you were starting to think about in terms of the layout, the design, the whole experience?
I think you've done a really good job of summing it up. I mean, it's exactly what you said. What we're trying to do here is enable people to create a curriculum, like a course, as it would be called on a learning management system, but to do that in a much more flexible way. One of the key things that we did was to make sure that you could reuse resources very easily. And so, if you've got a single item that's relevant to multiple different pathways, different audiences, that kind of thing, you can have it on the system once, and then you can use it time and time again. And then the other feature that's quite handy, we'll get into looking at things like visibility controls later on, but you can say, certain items on the system are not visible to certain people. And obviously that adds a level of complexity the pathways have been designed and built so that they just handle that complexity for you. So if there's something that you've added that is only visible to a certain subset of the people who are actually working their way through this, then the system doesn't require other people to complete it. And that's very helpful because it means that you can then start to do things like recertification pathways that are slightly different depending on whether or not something, people fit certain rules, that kind of stuff. So there's some really neat little features in here.
And then around this as well, I'm sure lots of people attending are wondering, well, how do you track and manage that from a compliance perspective? So within the platform, there's really rich data now to track completions down at a micro level around an individual piece of content, or at a macro level globally if you want to do that. This, again, there's nothing groundbreaking about this, right? Those competitors that I had on the front slide in the LMS category can all do this as well, but it is table stakes functionality that customers do need to manage the more compliance and regulatory training that's involved in a lot of businesses today. So as you can see on the screen, the relevant admins would have the relevant permissions in order to do pathway reporting at different audiences, because it could be a global audience or it could be more regional or department led. So there's lots of flexibility there.
And also the key thing there is it's all just right there on the system, right? So as a learner, I don't have to go to two different places to find out what do I need to do and what could I be doing to improve to build myself professionally. It's all right there on my learn page.
Just going to pause. Are there any questions in the Q&A which we should just quickly check out, Mark? Just going to.
Yep, there's one regarding translation. So does Thrive include inline translation? So not just user interface, but also content, titles, subtitles, etc. Yes, it does. So as you've said, we can translate the actual user interface itself, then configurable strings such as the titles, the kind of block headings on the homepage, all of those things, you can then translate and have kind of a specific version for. So yes, is the short version.
Perfect. Thanks, Mark. So we've covered off the training piece in my mind. So pathways, the events and the associated reporting. The next kind of area I want to get into is knowledge sharing. And that was one of the kind of core visions of the platform when we built Thrive, was how do we enable people to quickly share that tacit knowledge to groups of people around the world. So within the platform, as I previously showed, you have the ability to share files, documents, links, videos, questions to start discussions as well. And a few good examples are on the screen here. So for example, Decium, this customer, Nicola, the CEO, actively sharing kind of knowledge and insights to a large group of people across the whole organization. And that's exactly what we want to see in the platform. It's great experts sharing tips and tricks in a very, very agile way. During the pandemic, many of our customers pivoted very quickly from more traditional classroom-based sessions or webinar sessions to getting videos from experts out to their colleagues. And that was really critical for them. And what you're starting to see now is this style of content on the screen, or perhaps slightly more polished content, for example, this one, where you're finding the best expert across the business based on data, distilling that knowledge into 2 to 4 minute bite-sized videos, structure it into pathways and quickly sharing it to different groups and audiences across the organization. And what we're seeing that from everybody from retailers like here from Decium through to Sky, who are doing this for complaint handling and how to sell broadband and much more, all the way through to our manufacturing customers who are managing very complex supply chains and getting the processes outlined in a bite-sized video as well for people to watch on any device, especially on shop floors where it's very hard to access desktops. So knowledge sharing for us is that idea of quickly posting expert knowledge out into the platform and just sharing it with a large organization. Now, there's obviously some slight concerns that we hear quite a lot in terms of we don't want people to share knowledge, and that's absolutely fine. You can restrict this. You can select what you turn off and on when it comes to knowledge sharing. But what we are seeing is that the customers with the highest levels of adoption and engagement are the ones that really drive forward user-generated content strategies. Someone like Decium right now, about 68% of all knowledge in their site is coming from end users. At Ted Baker, it's about 58% of all knowledge is coming from the actual experts on the ground rather than L&D. So they're kind of flipping the model, moving away from a place where L&D are producing over 60-70% of the content to now going direct to the experts, distilling it into those videos and getting it out with speed. And, to be competitive now in any industry, it's all about speed and agility, right? Getting content out quickly. We can't go through long author boards and storyboards where it takes us 3 months to build a SCORM course anymore. We've kind of moved away from that, right? And also it's the authenticity of the content. watching an expert explain something in a 2 to 3 minute video is how we all learn in our personal lives, right? So there's nothing uncommon when people are adopting this style of content as well. So that's the first way in terms of knowledge sharing that we see. And then around that, you will get to see all the kind of comments and the interactions around those pieces of content. The step two, what we see a lot happening is also integration with Google that we've made. So for example, if I do a search around leadership right now, what instantly happens is Thrive detects content that already exists within the platform. So I've done a Google search, and rather than presenting me content on leadership from Harvard Business Review and elsewhere, I'm seeing great content that already exists in the site. A lot of the biggest competitors that we have right now aren't necessarily another LMS. It's Google, it's YouTube, right? Because that's where the habit has been formed over a period of time. So by directing people back to the platform, we have the ability to actually track what they're learning, and then in the future provide more kind of content strategies around, okay, people are searching for leadership, let's give them more of that. But one of the things that I absolutely love is being able to find a great article, let's say on Harvard Business Review, clicking on the integration we have, and then being able to actually share that with a group of people. Click that plus icon, it brings in the piece of content, allows me to share it with a specific audience, give it a tag, and then off it goes. I'm not sure what that thumbnail is from HBR, very random, random ducks, but there we go. But the idea is that the browser extension enables that learning in the flow of work, see some great content that you think would add value to other audiences across the organization, and share it very, very quickly into the platform. So the knowledge sharing piece for us is firstly all about the expert, get the expert knowledge distilled into the platform and shared to large organizations. Secondly, then tracking the learning in the flow of work and making sure that people can also share additional content back into the platform. You got any other points there, Mark, around the whole knowledge sharing piece that you think is important for people to hear?
Just a question that's been posted that I thought I'd answer. I've actually lost it now. 1 second. Sorry, it's up the list. So just around like how do we monitor content that's being posted from kind of open sources, and there's a couple of things to mention really in terms of there are controls that you can put in place in terms of who can post what kind of content, and you can actually set the system up so that no one can post anything if you want to. Or something that's more common is to say, certain users can post questions maybe, or just links, but we don't want them to be able to post videos or that kind of thing. So that's a good starting point, because that then allows you to kind of set the ground layer in terms of what you want people to be able to do on the platform. And then from that perspective, you then have the feature to basically allow flagging. So if there's something that needs to be flagged because it's inappropriate or might be kind of giving incorrect information, that's something that people can report to administrators through a feature built directly into the system. The kind of great thing about this, we actually see this being used far more for learning resources that have just kind of fallen out of date, and people flagging and saying, oh, I think this needs a bit of an update. In practice, we don't see many problems in terms of people posting invalid or incorrect resources. We actually find that user-generated content is generally really good, and it's something that we kind of help you to encourage people to post as part of your launch process.
Mm-hmm. Thanks, Mark. So that's knowledge sharing. So we've done training, pathways, events, compliance, and how that all looks in the platform. Second, you've got knowledge sharing. So, the posting of tacit knowledge by experts, and then also learning in the flow of work for integrations with Google, but as well as Slack and Teams and those types of tools. Next is communication. So communication is really interesting for us. What we've seen, a real trend happening over the last kind of 6 to 12 months, is organizations running tenders and requests for proposals where they go out to buy an LMS or an LXP, but they might be running simultaneously an RFP around a communication tool. And this has happened a few times. Matalan is the one that sticks out for us. They're a large UK retailer, over 12,000 employees. We were in a process for an RFP and doing quite well, but then the head of internal communications got wind of it as well. And interestingly, they stopped both RFPs and selected Thrive as a unified learning and communication tool. So rather than just having a learning tool and a separate comms tool, they recognize unifying everything together, simplify the employee experience, makes a lot of sense, especially for frontline workers. So there's kind of few key elements to how comms works within the platform. When you have these blocks at the front page, like internal news, which you've seen, you've got videos from experts, town halls, PDFs around the strategy, which everyone's visible to. And this is really, really valuable, right? Because people can just be at the front of their mind what's happening in the business. 2, in Ted Baker's world, they've got a block here on the front page where they have business communications, weekly roundups, values, and business results all on the interface. What this means is that the content has moved away from email to a place where it's fully trackable within the platform. So now a business leader at a C-level exec position can post out a video about how their performance is doing, but we can get the data around it. Previously, a lot of tools, whether it's even SharePoint and email, it's quite hard to track what's happening, what people are searching for, how they access it. So it really improves the communication channels. So this is really, really important for our retail customers in particular, who are now unifying all of the news via the front end, as well as learning. And also many times, it is hard to engage people around learning. Everyone's extremely busy. So by bringing communications and giving them more of a reason to come into Thrive, it really helps drive that engagement as well. So what we've also seen is the broadcast functionality that we built in with Sky during the pandemic have been a really, really useful tool to connect people within one platform as well. Of course, many organizations have Zoom, Teams, GoToMeeting, whatever it might be, but by building a broadcast tool into the platform, it allowed us to work really quickly with that. So with that, it means I can click on a broadcast here, go live to an entire population, could be 1,000+ people, and I could actually go live right now with integrated polls and messages, and it's all fully trackable. At the end of the broadcast, it records, embeds it into the platform so people can save it and watch it for later. And there's been lots of brilliant examples around this. If I just type Nicola into here, who's again the CEO, she's very, very active onto the platform. You'll see various different broadcasts that she's been running. And these just get such high levels of engagement. All the polls are trackable. You can do quick pulse checks from a culture perspective, all the way through to updating people on really critical and serious information as well. But again, the idea is that you don't need to go use a separate tool. You can have it all integrated into Thrive. So that was a really, really nice piece of functionality that we built during the pandemic with Sky, just to really help streamline those communications again, and help people communicate at scale very, very quickly. Mark, anything you'd share around the comms side of things that you've seen with customers as well?
Apologies, I'm getting distracted by questions. Again, I think you covered it pretty well. The broadcast piece is really powerful. Someone's just asked there in terms of like limitations on numbers, and the way that it works is very similar to these big consumer tools like Twitch and YouTube and Facebook Live. You can stream to as many end users as you want to, and that makes it a very powerful tool for business leaders to be able to get in touch with or share a message with thousands of people at once. And obviously very different from something that's kind of more of a one-to-one or a small scale meeting that you would have on something like Microsoft Teams. Mm-hmm. And again, a lot of that was inspired through what we learned during the pandemic, and actually helping businesses and organizations to share knowledge and information on things that were critical and respond to the challenges that they were seeing. So we've kind of learned a lot through that process.
Thanks, Mark. And I think the last part, so from a communication point, you've got the news, you've got the broadcasts, you've got the explore section here where you can host kind of policies and procedures, which again is more intranet style typically, but now we're seeing much more happen within the platform. So the explore section is critical. And then finally, the campaign functionality, which is still quite a unique feature within the platform. Campaigns, as gets talked about in L&D a lot, but it's not functionality you see in too many platforms. For us, what it means is that you can run campaigns at the top of the page. So for example, at Deciem here, they've got a new performance management process, which is getting deployed soon. Ted Baker, for example, right now, they've got an ethics and sustainability campaign running. And what it means is you can leverage the idea of spaced repetition. So you can space the knowledge out, share a video on Monday, something on Wednesday, something else on Friday, to really, really space and nudge people at the right time. So these are campaigns which can be run simultaneously across the business. You can run 10 campaigns at one time for different audiences, but you can be extremely data driven in how you do that. So if I clicked into the analytics here, firstly, you'd be able to understand the time in which people are using the platform. So filter on an audience like leaders and go, okay, we understand that leaders are accessing the platform at Tuesday at 12 o'clock. So rather than just uploading the content into our LMS when we're ready, now we can be really data driven in how we target people. So acting more like marketeers in the B2B or B2C world by leveraging the data and then releasing these campaigns at the right time to the right people. I think over the last kind of 10, 15 years, we've just seen L&D sometimes, unfortunately, just produce great content and then just upload it to the LMS and hope something happens. But that's not really how things are happening anymore with other distractions and other tools that people have within the workplace. So our campaign functionality is that last part of the communication challenge, where you can nudge people at the right time, space the content out, notifications delivered to devices such as Android, iOS, the web, and email. And we also have solutions for non-email users as well, if required, to really make sure we're targeting people in the right way. So we've done training, we've done knowledge sharing, we've just wrapped up comms. What we'll move on to now is skills, which for us was a bit of a game changer when we launched this at Learning Technologies near the start of the year. It really enabled us to differentiate ourselves, move away from that kind of LMS and LXP world to a place now where skill management and tracking of skills for organizations is something that can happen natively within the platform. So let me just jump into our internal version of Thrive. So this is internal Thrive, which we use every day internally from our own L&D perspective and comms angle. If I click onto the Learn page, this is my actual own goals and skills that I'm working towards. Hopefully there's nothing sensitive in here, but we'll jump into it. Medic, for example, is a sales methodology, which a lot of sales teams around the world use, and it's something that we're deploying at the minute here at Thrive. So we have skill levels, which I'm working towards. Content gets automatically recommended to me based upon where I'm at with those skills. We have diagnostics within the platform, which allow people to benchmark where they're at, which is really critical. And we really can make this slightly differently. A lot of organizations have your more traditional competency frameworks, top down, and we've gone a completely different way with this. We've gone from a much more agile skills framework built from the ground up by experts rather than coming top down from management. So it's really, really fluid. Mark, do you want to share just some ideas around kind of how we're using skills with organizations and what you've been seeing since you've been deploying this?
Yeah, so again, I'm going to go back to the pandemic. So I was thinking that everyone wants to be done talking about the pandemic. Again, though, through that time, we learned an awful lot. And what we were seeing was periods where people started talking and communicating about subjects that were sometimes really simple, but were actually really important for businesses to meet their objectives. And really the most successful L&D teams during that time were reaching out to managers and kind of key team members in order to find out, what are the challenges that you're facing? What are people worried about? What can we do to support our whole team and make them feel better able to deal with the challenges that they're maybe not facing today, but they're going to be facing over the next few weeks. And our tools are very much focused on that as well. Being able to track not just the kind of endorsed skills that you can see here on Josh's page. That little kind of tick icon means it's something that is official or from your organization. But potentially also Josh might have something that, or one of his team members might have something that is a little bit more informal, but they find really useful and that they want to learn more about, and maybe even share with their colleagues. And that's where we start to kind of get this really useful and magical level of information, because just by kind of having one person doing that, it doesn't really create any noise on the system, and our analytics ignore it. But by having more people begin to engage with the topic, we can then highlight that as something that actually might be relevant for you to endorse and bring into your kind of competency framework or your kind of formal skills ontology. And that's a kind of a superpower of the system, being able to understand that organic growth and the way, the trends in which people are learning and what they're learning about, and then highlighting that to you so that you can then kind of, if you feel like it's relevant and suitable, actually bring that on board and make it something that you focus on. It might be that you've got no content on it. It might be that you've got no experts on it, so you can identify a gap. And then inversely as well, we also see examples where customers might be putting a lot of emphasis and focus on creating resources or finding resources on a given topic. And actually the learning activity that we see off the back of that is very minimal compared to other things that are maybe much more of a hot topic. So actually helps people to adjust and focus their resources and their time on the stuff that's most important.
Thanks, Mark. So that's the skills piece there. And there's a few other points I'll quickly share on skills. So these are the skills that I'm working towards. We do integrate with other platforms. I've mentioned Workday and others where you might have an existing skills framework built into those tools where we could connect via REST API to bring that into the platform. Our implementation team work very closely with our customers to deploy the skills. We can have different weightings and levels to them, different naming conventions as well. It could be 1 to 5, average to excellent. So there's lots and lots of flexibility built into this to enable people to deploy it that works for their organization. The big part of skills that we recognize with scoping this out with customers, though, is just because you're completing some videos or watching something online, it doesn't mean you're an expert in it. So that's where we added in the goal functionality and the evidence piece. So for example, here around this specific skill, I could share with my line manager a piece of evidence, such as a video, a question, a document, that should be sent to my manager for a review and feedback as well. So that part's really critical, so feedback can take place. The skill's never going to be complete without that level of reflection and feedback from a manager or coach across the organization. The next part to that is the goal functionality. So for example, a goal has been set by my manager here. And what I can see is it's a goal around storytelling, around skills and goals, ironically. And here there's three kind of key tasks to work towards. They could be task-based or they could be content-based. So the top one here, presentation to Mark and Sean, is a piece of task-based evidence which I need to share. The next piece is actually a video which exists within the platform, which I need to watch. And again, the manager would have a dashboard live within the platform, which they could be visible with all their team in one place where this is all tracked. And really what we're getting to with this is tracking a lot of different types of skill data across the organization. You can imagine across an organization with thousands of learners, the amount of data that's occurring right now. So for example, we can build lots of integrations with Tableau, Power BI, Domo, and various other data lakes and warehouse tools to visualize this data to help you really understand what KPIs are you tracking and how is that impacting the skills across the organization. So for example, here I've got a skill level chart where I can see the average skill level across different skills across the organization versus highest to lowest. That really helps you understand what L&D initiatives and programs you should be deploying to drive the engagement around those skills. The one that a lot of customers love is the skill engagement by location, particularly interesting to global organizations who are really trying to understand the makeup of skills across the organization in different markets. Again, how can we be more strategic about how we're deploying L&D initiatives and programs based on the skill gaps that are emerging? So there's lots of different ways now that we connect to these platforms, such as Power BI. We've got an amazing team of data analysts led by Ian Blackburn, who's one of the kind of industry leading experts around XAPI and learning analytics. He works with customers to provide all of these kind of bespoke reports and dashboards, and then supplementary analysis, which our customers can receive to really help improve the engagement and the KPIs that they're tracking across the organization. So based on the data that he's seeing, he can make recommendations about what you might want to change to address the business impact that you're looking to see. And the key for all of this for us is not necessarily engagements, likes, views, and comments, but although that does make up a part of the picture, it's all about the business impact. What we're really looking to prove right now is increasing sales, increasing NPS, reducing attrition, all those types of metrics, which are really important to our customers. And that's a big part of our implementation service during the actual deployment of the platform to understand all of that. Anything I missed, Mark? Anything you'd add?
Just to add, so Data Lab, I find that it's a really exciting thing. It's an exciting concept. And the reason for it is when we look at L&D teams and the struggles that they have within organizations, sometimes it's all about how do they promote what they're doing and actually get the wider business to understand the value that they're bringing and the points at which they should be engaged. And in that regard, really, that's exactly what Data Lab is there for. It's all about helping you to get the evidence and measure the impact that you're having and put together the narrative, the story of what you're achieving in your organization so that you can then share that with your business leaders and get the opportunity to kind of start making a wider impact. Data Lab's critical for what I see as being one of the biggest challenges, which is getting people to understand L&D to be what it's really all about, helping businesses meet their objectives, helping organizations to grow.
Absolutely. So we're coming to the end of the kind of product talk before we get to a few little final bits and answer the Q&A. I think I saw a question about Udemy, I think in the chat. We have a number of integrations with platforms from Open Sesame, Blinkist, Get Abstract, LinkedIn Learning, Skillsoft, like many more. There's essentially an auto curation tool in the back end of Thrive where the partners that you've procured along the way, you can share that content really easily into the platform. So that's going to mean that you can connect with these tools. This auto curation task here is going to surface all of the content from those partners and allow you to kind of curate it to a smaller set of audiences. The biggest challenge with a lot of these vendors here is that there's potentially too much content. And again, it comes back to that fatigue that learners have right now with too much content within the platform. So what we can do is start to target how we scrape the content from these providers and surface it in a smaller way, basically. So for example, I can click on data science, filter on skill level within LinkedIn Learning, so let's say advanced, then filter further down to, let's say, big data. So now I found 11 items. That's much more manageable to build an experience for a set of data analysts within your organization. And then you can import that. It would deeply embed. All the tracking and the reporting takes place within Thrive as we support XAPI statements, as do many of these content partners. So Udemy and all the rest of them are all fully supported. We've just announced a really great integration with Blinkist, who are one of the more modern providers now of content, much more bite-sized, short form content, whether it's audio or text, which we're going to embed into the platform as well. So as long as you've got a license with these providers, that's absolutely supported. We've also got our content service, which is really helping customers now fill content gaps, as we have got a team that map our content to the programs and initiatives you're deploying, and also move away from courses to resources. What we've built is a brilliant library of soft skills resources, which can be easily deployed into the platform. So for example, leadership content, all built in-house in partnership with our customers in 10 minutes in length or less. So customers are really liking the service because we'll run these workshops with you where we actually map this content to those programs that you're running. And then beyond that, what we have is a campaign strategy mapped out from January to December with big global initiatives that are happening around the world. The biggest challenge for a lot of the L&D teams that we work with is lack of resource. They don't have people, armies of people producing content and pathways and campaigns. So within here, for example, like go into, let's say, Black History Month, and our team have already built a brilliant set of resources which can be easily deployed into the platform. So by the time it gets to October, you can drop that into the platform very quickly. This is multilingual. It's not just in English. We've got French, German, Italian, Spanish, and many more languages that we can support to really add a lot of value and move away from libraries with 100,000 plus assets, where everyone's a bit overwhelmed, to a much more higher quality, low volume service, which addresses a lot of the performance challenges that a lot of our customers, at least, are seeing within their teams right now. So it's very much more targeted service. So yes, we have all the Udemy integrations and that type of thing, but then there's also got the Content Club, which is a much more bespoke service and offering. Okay, I think a few more slides, then we'll move up to a Q&A and we'll see where we are, Mark. So let me just go back to here. So I guess in summary, with all of that in mind, what we've built across the last few years, obviously a platform which is an all-in-one learning and skills platform, but the impact has been very significant in terms of the user-generated posts, the completions of learning, the millions and millions of content views which our customers have seen. It's really driving impact across organizations. Our data lab team that I mentioned is also now starting to prove the business impact of the solution. So again, moving away from vanity metrics, which in fairness they are in terms of views, likes and shares, to true business impact. And our customer event, which we host on the 14th of September, there's going to be lots of amazing stories being shared by our customers around the actual business impact this is having and that we're proving together. But that being said, in the last 3 years, I think is a testament to the team in terms of what they've built. We have really built a stable solution now, which the uptimes at industry levels, the customer renewal rate is quite frankly something that I've never seen, not only within the learning tech industry, but just software as a service in general, in terms of that 99% customer renewal rate. So that's the kind of impact that we've been having for our customers along the journey. If I go to the next slide, what next? There's quite a few big things happening next. Number one, 24-hour support will be launching shortly. We've now got our teams in Australia, the US and the UK. So that's live support, 24 hours a day, 5 days a week, via our Zendesk system, which is email, call-based, and then recently live chat, which will enable our customers via second and third line support to access our support teams via live chat, which is definitely very popular. Then we have 2 really exciting product launches happening at that customer event. The number one is Compliance Club. So we have our content solution already, but what a lot of customers are needing is compliance content, which is done in a more modern way. I think we're all a bit sick and tired of going through a health and safety course, and it's very painful to get through it. So we're coming up with some really fresh ideas to make it exciting and refreshing for our customers. But not only that, it will be fully accredited by the relevant awarding bodies for those industries, so that you can actually manage compliance with Thrive from a content perspective. And then the one that I'm particularly excited about is our marketing service. So this came from when Cassie, our CMO, was running a workshop with one of our amazing customers, Massey Hogarth at Bally's. They're a large global company with 6,000 people. And Cassie ran a marketing workshop with Bally's around how to actually target people using personas, how to come up with GIFs and trailers and animations to really build up anticipation of the launch and make sure that you're targeting people with a marketing view in mind. I came back to it when we were talking about campaigns. L&D need to be acting more like marketeers to really drive the engagement and the adoption of these platforms. It's hard for L&D teams to get the attention that they deserve right now with the solutions they're deploying because of all the other things that are happening. So our marketing service is going to be a brilliant service, which is going to be assets, like I said, videos, trailers, GIFs, animations to build the anticipation of the launch, but also a service where we'll run workshops with you by world-class marketeers who can help you level up their deployment of any solution that you're running across the business. So we're launching those 2 new products at our event on the 14th of September, where we have Stephen Bartlett and a bunch of other amazing people speaking as well. So we're really excited about that. So just to summarize, before we get to the final Q&A, 3 core products: Thrive, the learning and skills platform. You can manage learning end to end, all formal learning, informal learning, as well as your skill management piece. 2, the Content Club, which is 650 plus micro learning resources, as well as a service to map our content to the programs you're deploying. And then finally, the Data Lab service, which is proving the ROI and the success of everything that we're doing here, especially managing, the business performance side of things and making sure we're tracking against those metrics. So thanks for joining today. We're going to answer a few questions in the Q&A, because I'm sure there's a few coming in, unless Mark's already answered them. But thanks for joining. Thanks for listening to us. We really, really appreciate it. The recording will be shared out afterwards for those who have signed up as well. So let's hit the Q&A, Mark. Is there any questions? Have you already answered them all?
Answered them all. There's a good few and some really good questions that will be good to get our teeth into.
Okay.
The first one was, I just saw it kind of being discussed in the chat, and I thought it'd be worth us kind of flagging here, really around the different types of content that we can support on the platform. And I was wondering if you could show us the kind of content creation page, and just we can kind of run through those quickly. So yeah, on here you'll see we've got support for kind of rehosting files. That includes videos, and the video hosting is kind of really good, top-notch stuff in terms of reprocessing that and adjusting to the bandwidth that's available and all that good stuff that you get on YouTube and systems like that. Links, which again, we've got some really nice functionality there in terms of embedding and just making that display as kind of nice as possible, without any effort on your part. We've got support for articles, so you can have paragraphs of text and images and share those with your end users. Questions, which is really good. It's a lot like kind of Stack Overflow or Reddit, people being able to post and just kind of share questions that they might have, and also kind of get answers from the community. Pathways we touched on in terms of creating like a curriculum type structure. E-learning is our way of hosting kind of SCORM packages, TinCam packages, and CMI5 packages. So you can upload all of those to the platform directly. We've got support for quizzes, which just gives us a form of assessment. Broadcasts are a way of kind of doing that live communication, very popular with kind of business leaders, but can also be used in kind of a training concept as well. And then finally, events, which is for managing kind of face-to-face events. We've got a lot of kind of high-end functionality in there around like wait lists and being able to manage kind of multiple sessions within a kind of event occurrence. So yeah, it's a kind of really well fleshed out bit of functionality there. Okay, on to the next one. There's a question from Dan. Is there an element of gamification, trophies, leaderboards, and points for completing content? I'll let you answer that one. That's okay, Josh.
Yes, everybody's got their own profile, if you like. Their profile is tracking all their skills, the learning they've completed, and then there's a series of badges and points which you receive based on different levels of interactions with the platform, from logging in to posting content to following experts or sharing knowledge. We're adding in more customization towards the end of the year around badges as well, which will allow organizations to customize these a little bit further as well. So the main way of gamification is definitely via the badge functionality, which you see on the screen. Some customers are starting to ask about integrations with platforms like Credly as well, which are quite interesting to us. So that's something we're starting to see a lot more too.
Yeah, and certainly from the perspective of when we look at things like certificates and that form of recognizing that someone's done something significant in their learning journey, that's all stuff that we're bringing into the gamification system as well. So for a goal, you're able to recognize that progression, and then how do you actually get that on someone's profile? Well, we gamify that. We make it something that's a bit more fun and they feel kind of proud of. So definitely a key part of the way the system's been designed. A very quick question: is the platform and content available offline? So Josh mentioned that we have a mobile app that's available on iOS and Android, and that application supports downloading resources and yeah, accessing them while you've kind of not got an internet connection. That's obviously limited to certain types of content. So it's not something that we can do for like a link, because the link is just taking you out to a web page. But if you've got kind of an e-learning package or a video or a file, all of those kinds of things, absolutely it can be downloaded. And the really cool thing is the app has got intelligence to be able to kind of recognize if something's been assigned to you and it's mandatory learning, it actually automatically downloads that for you so that you don't have to kind of do that manually. So there's some really neat little features baked in just to make that really straightforward. Okay, another question. So from Katrin, so is Thrive only available as an entire package, or would it be possible to only gain access to the micro-learning catalog too? I'll let you answer that one, Josh.
Absolutely. Yeah, a lot of customers don't use our learning platform. They might just use our content and upload that all directly into an existing LMS or LXP that they have. So lots of customers doing that. Very easy to do. We give you the source files, upload it, and also do some mapping as well if required to. So absolutely.
Nice and simple, thank you. And then there's one or two things to do with skills that I would like to jump into, be a little bit more detailed. I'll just answer a couple of quick questions on other fronts before we jump into that. So can Thrive be white labeled and then skinned for customers and also for kind of some clients? So yes, it can. When you're looking at the interface, all of the colors, the logos are up in the top left, the little icon that appears kind of in your favorites, all of that is configurable, and you can do that from the front end. So you would have the ability to configure that, and your customers would as well do. And so yeah, that's absolutely fine. And then one more quick question. What types of questions are covered with the quiz? So the quiz is a multiple choice question types and just allows you to have, really the focus for that is around allowing people to kind of post quizzes for one another. We wanted to build that out to be something that kind of could work for the user generated content as well as for kind of more formal assessments. So yeah.
And we've also got the integrations with platforms like Question Mark as well, which if customers need more high stakes regulatory assessments, they've got hundreds of them, which some of our more regulated customers use as well.
Yes, exactly. And that element of integration is really critical. There's quite a lot that our system's doing already, but equally we don't want to build it to be kind of doing absolutely everything. And we know that there are certain situations in which you need like highly formal assessment. The key thing there is to make sure that our technology is working well so that you can integrate those where needed. Okay, there are one or two more. So Chris has asked a question about employee skill levels and how it's determined. So kind of how we can progress people's skills. Josh, do you want me to answer that one?
Yeah, go for it.
Okay, so that is an area that as we were researching, we knew that it was something that every single organization we spoke to had a different way of viewing this. So in some cases it was very informal and actually just down to an individual identifying that they've progressed in an area or representing that for themselves. In other areas it was about managers signing things off and saying, yep, you've now reached this level. We also have support for kind of assessment-based skill progression, so we can look at a scored activity like a quiz or an e-learning package, and we can say, right, if you've reached between 70% and 80%, then you're at this level. If you're above 80%, you're at this level. So that's really kind of quite complicated functionality that very quickly allows you to identify what level people are at. And then finally, also, goals are an important way of representing that someone has kind of reached a significant milestone in their learning journey. And so goals also allow you to kind of recognize that learning and that skill level has increased. So a wide range of different ways. One more thing I'd mention on skills as well is the kind of configurability that we have on the skill levels. So you'll see on our system here, we've just got 3 different levels, and I think they're called like starter, intermediate, superstar, or something like that. That's just our configuration. You can have up to 10 different levels and you can name them whatever you want. And what we found is customers very often have like their own style and their own culture that they want to kind of expose and bring out through those and gamify a little bit. So that's been a really important feature that's been really well received. Hopefully that's answered your question, Chris. I'm also going to answer, sorry, there's a lot of me talking. I'll shut up in a second. Carol's asked a really good question though, in terms of whether there's any plans to further support mentoring. So we are working, and so we're researching at the moment functionality around mentoring and coaching. And really what we're interested in there is allowing two different types of support from kind of other people within the organization. So the one is just someone that comes alongside you and helps you be a good team member and understand how to do things within within your job. And then the other is really focused on enabling you to progress in a specific skill or against a specific goal. And that's functionality that we are absolutely building out as part of our skills suite. And it will be, I'm not going to talk about dates, but it's definitely something that we're working on over the course of the first half of next year. It will be very, very, very soon. So that's important. A couple more questions here. So I don't know, Josh, are there any that have caught your eye?
There was one, I've lost it. It was Thrive is in every L&D group at the minute. As the best platform. That's nice. How do you plan to continue success as you grow? I think there's a few bits. I think recruiting well is definitely important to us. We've got brilliant networks within the L&D industry, which allows us to attract great talent. Most of our recent hires have come from competitors who have really proven success in deploying and building solutions like this. That's step one. I think two, it's kind of doubling down on kind of key hires that can help us scale to the next phase, right? So we have some brilliant kind of people joining us recently who will definitely help us get there. I think three is taking on great customer feedback and actually building that back into the product. So we have a customer event, like I said, on the 14th of September, where we'll gather lots and lots of great feedback from customers on how we can improve. Because this is never finished for us. It's going to continuously evolve, and that feedback's critical to help us grow. So I think it's kind of just doing what we have been doing recently in terms of just bringing in great people who are really, really passionate about learning and development and transforming kind of workplace learning, and really keep listening to our customers to make sure that we can support their needs over the next kind of few years. Any more questions, Mark?
There are a couple, yeah. So we have, I'll answer it, one from Chris first of all. So can we build in kind of 360 feedback? There are ways you can do that through this tool, but we've not really built this as a kind of 360 feedback tool. So against kind of specific goals, you can have tasks to kind of gather feedback and submit evidence and that kind of stuff. So we do have some customers where they're doing a little bit of that, but it's a little bit offline at the moment. It's something that we're kind of gathering feedback on. We're not sure whether or not to kind of progress into adding that directly into the platform as a more kind of specifically supported feature. But yeah, certainly there are ways that you can kind of achieve those kinds of workflows if you wanted to at the moment. And then one more question from Jackie. So do some of your customers still use an LMS where there's reluctance to move away, which is a great question. Josh, do you fancy your first stab at that, or do you want me to go for it?
Yeah, I think the answer is only maybe one or two. I think maybe three out of 300. So it's quite a small percentage, but they tend to be the people, the organizations that are very, very large enterprises that might be looking to phase out a more legacy LMS over the next kind of 1 to 3 years. If you look at one of our largest customers, Cisco, they're 85,000 plus people. Before Thrive, they had tens and tens of learning management systems. So it's a bit of an IT task, a change management exercise to move away from that many in time. But the goal will always be a single system for these customers. I think a few years back, platforms like Degreed and Edcast kind of sit on top of the LMS because they don't have the LMS capability. But Thrive is very different in that we can replace a LMS end to end. So it's a very small percentage of customers that still retain an LMS. And if they do, right now, they'll be looking to phase it out over the next couple of years.
Yeah, that's a solid answer. I can't add an awful lot to that, but certainly, where there's requirements, I talked about integration earlier on, to be able to kind of forward completion and records onto elsewhere, we can absolutely do that. We see that very often with HR systems in particular. And so certainly that kind of integration is possible. One more quick question that I'll try and answer in a few seconds. So in terms of being able to kind of submit evidence and kind of mark things off as being done following a piece of learning. So with the goals piece that we showed earlier on, you have the ability to create arbitrary tasks and say this needs to be done, and also say that a manager needs to sign that off. And that can be assigned out to the kind of on an individual basis, but also to a team. And we're working on being able to assign that out to a whole audience at the same time. And from there, really, the line manager and indirect managers would be able to kind of support in terms of saying, have we seen evidence that this person has done what they need to do? So yes, that's absolutely something that you can do. Okay, I think we're pretty much at time, Josh. We've actually run over a couple of minutes.
Yeah.
Apologies, everyone.
Thanks for your time, everybody. Really enjoyed that. Any questions? Our contact details are on the final slide, just here. And we can be connected on LinkedIn. That's probably where we're seeing the most. So feel free to message us on there if you've got any questions as well. As I said, the recording will come out afterwards. And yeah, thanks for your time today. And Mark, thanks very much. I'll speak to you all soon.